Okay, so this is the first tutorial I've done for my car, and this tutorial will be for adding a steering wheel controls. It applies to 2010 to 2013 Suzuki SX4. I can't say that it will not apply to the 2007 to 2009, but there are some differences. I'm even using some instructions from the 2009 7 to 9 manual you can get. But this is the model right here, is the year and model of my car. So this is the one I did. I have a 2013, and I added steering wheel controls from a 2011 that I bought on eBay. Okay, so I want to say before we start and go any further into this tutorial, you need to have this E383 connector in your car. As far as I know, cars with manual transmissions have this E383 connector without the cruise control. If you have a CVT, I know that my brother has a CVT without cruise, and he does not have this connector. This connector is located along that back firewall. It'll be fairly close to your clutch pedal, but just up against the wall in between your engine and the front cabin. So if you take a look under by your gas pedal, I believe your brake is right here, and your clutch is over here. That if you see this connector, then you're good to go with this tutorial. If you do not have this, then you might as well stop the video now, because it's not going to help you, because you won't have this connector. Some things might help you, like taking the airbag off and getting into the pins. If you were to run the harness straight from the ECU, but this basically allows me to connect those steering wheel, those three wires, the cruise control wire, your ground, and then the main cruise control on and off, and then the cruise control wire. That allows me to connect it to the ECU without having to go through my firewall. But yeah, if you don't have this, I don't know how much this is going to help you. The first step, what we're going to be doing is we'll be removing and swapping the steering wheel. So just to get started, here's how we take the airbag out. There's your steering wheel. Your first step, as always, is disconnecting the cable at the negative terminal. I found I could disconnect it and then tuck it in kind of to the side. You want to avoid having it jump back up. You want it in a safe position, so make sure you do that first before you touch your airbag. It is an explosive device, and you don't want to activate it. Okay. Some things to remember: there's 2 screw holes on either side. I do have a video that I'll show you later, a couple of tricks. They are Torx, a T30 connection. Okay, you'd loosen those screws, pull them out, and then you'd remove the airbag and kind of tilt it towards you, and then you'd pop the horn connection off, and you'd pop the airbag. Mine has 2. This is only showing 1 because it covers European and North American models. And you pop the 2 connectors off, and then your airbag is removed. Okay, so we're gonna take a quick look at the steering wheel. This isn't my car, but this is the steering wheel. And your bolts are located just behind, on this side, on the right side, and on the left side right here. So we take a closer look. Okay, and this is with my steering wheel, and there are the bolts right on either side. You can see I'm pointing to them, so they're on the bottom. You'll want your steering wheel straight, it'll be easier. And if you look at my newer steering wheel, the bolts are the same. It gives you a better idea of the location here. So that's where the airbag bolts are, and it's a T30. Make sure you disconnect the power. Okay, so I'm about to put this steering wheel in, and I wanted to show this here. I think it'll be easier. Here's your bolt when you're taking it out, and you can see just along either side of the bolt there's little groove slots. Okay. The bolt will
fasten itself, but then they'll actually stay, you can see right here, they stay sticking out a little bit. And they actually won't pull themselves all the way out because the thread tapped in to the column doesn't actually start till probably a couple millimeters in. So when you're trying to pull the airbag out, it's going to catch on these bolts. And you sit there for hours trying to figure it out because you're thinking like, can this get? So what I have here is a paper clip. And I'm just gonna, my plan is, and I've already done this once, I put it in to one of those slots. See here. Flip it around, and then I'll just grab the back of the bolt and pull on it just to give it some force to get it out so the airbag will come out. So that's a tip for getting your airbag out. So I got the airbag out. You can see there I managed to get the screws all the way back. Actually, as I was unscrewing it, I kind of torqued it a bit. So I angled it in, levered it in a bit into the bolt to give it to catch it a little bit and pull it out. This is a T30, by the way, T30. Okay, so there's my airbag connectors right there. And there's my ground, so airbag and ground, or not ground, horn. Horn clip, I don't know if you could see it right there. Let's see if I can get it to focus a bit better. Yeah, right there. There's a tab on this connector. See? You gotta push that down. Don't be yanking on this too hard. Push that tab down. I got a bit of a thumbnail for doing this, so I push it down and then it pulls off really easily. And my airbag, you pop up the lock on the connector. Just remember which side is which. I have the video, so I just refer to the video. I always take videos and pictures of everything I do, but you pop off that top with a little flat head, and then you just get a little flat head like this, and wiggle it underneath.
The airbag is removed, and now we're going to be taking the steering wheel off. To start, we want to remove the lower steering column panel. And once we've done that, we will remove the steering shaft nut. And finally, we'll pull the steering wheel off. We can either use our muscles carefully or we can use a steering wheel puller. So here's your lower steering column panel. 3 screws. To access these 2 screws, you need to turn your wheel. So you'll need your keys, even though you have your battery disconnected, you can still put it in ignition 1 position and unlock, just so your steering wheel doesn't lock. And you'll want to rotate your wheel one way to access this screw, and then the other way to access this screw. And then finally the screw underneath up here. Push in. There's tabs here and they hook on the other side, so push in and pull down. This side is easier to get off. You'll have to push in on it though, and then kind of just using friction of your fingertips, pull down on the panel and it will unclip. And you'll want to have this panel off anyways to access the G346, I believe, the connection under there. So we're looking at this. This is what the steering wheel remover tool looks like. I'm pretty sure if you went to Canadian Tire, or well, I'm Canadian, but some, your auto place, that you can rent them out for free with a deposit. They're pretty standard, right? So this is gonna push in, I believe, and these are gonna pull out. Okay, here's your contact coil, and your steering wheel. When you're putting it on, it actually has 2 centering tabs that will center it to the contact coil. What some people do is before they pull the steering wheel off, they'll take a crayon or a marker or something, and they'll just mark here and on the splines. It's not really going to help you since you're swapping wheels. You just have to be careful. I ended up taking mine off twice because I put it on the wrong. I put it just 1 spline over too many. So you'll get what I'm talking about when you pull your steering wheel off. Okay, so Yeah, that's the taking it off. I didn't use a puller, but you have to be really careful. You want to pull evenly on both sides, because if you do wrench it to one side, you could damage your splines on your steering shaft. Okay, so we have removed the airbag and we have removed the steering wheel. Now you're basically looking at what most people call your clock spring. Suzuki calls it contact coil, and that's what you're looking at. You see your airbag connectors; it's coming out, and then it's a round circle, and then along the bottom underneath where your ignition goes in, you'll see that S71G346 12-pin connector, and then beside that, I think there's some airbag connectors. There's a couple other connectors in there. And basically this allows you to have wires going to your steering wheel controls that can twist around. So what do we need to make this work? You are now bringing in a steering wheel with that originally has your original steering wheel with no cruise control only had one wire going into this S61 connector. And now you're bringing in a control, I think, with as many as, I think it's an extra 7. And here's the catch. Suzuki did not run the 4 pins you need for the cruise control. Don't ask me why, because they ran the pins for the illumination, so the buttons will illuminate, and they ran the pins for the radio. They even ran extra pins from the radio. We don't know what they are. I think they might have been like, maybe to trigger the voice. Maybe they had some, but there is extra wires there that are not doing anything. But they did not run the 4 pins for the cruise control, which would have been your power, your ground, your main, which is on and off, and your mode. So what do you need for this step? You need 4 pins that will fit in this connector. I'll take a look at it, and I have a video that kind of talks about it. I originally ordered the roster kit. Those pins do not fit this connector. They are for the ECU. They're a longer pin. So what can you do? You can MacGyver it. There's people who I've read on the forums that have pulled pins out of old, a radio, from a car. They use the pins out of there, because you when you upgrade your radio, you actually hardwire it, right? It's just loose wires. I found a dump car. I actually had to go to 2 dump cars. Now, here's the catch. If you found a dump car with the controls in your area, then you take the connector with you, and you'll have as many pins as you need, right? So you get the steering wheel, and most people, it's gonna be tough. Like the place where I was, they wouldn't sell me just the wheel. They wanted me to buy the whole thing. So, but yeah, so I found a dump car, and I just said, hey, can I grab this connector? And he's like, yeah, I don't care. So I grabbed that connector. It only had 3 pins. So then I had to find another one. I found an actual Suzuki Vitara, and it had the same connector, and I think it was the same cruise control. I might even be able to use that Vitara steering wheel, but I didn't want to try. And I pulled that connector too, this connector right here at the clock spring. So I kind of show you in a second. So you need that, and those 4 pins, and you will need 4 wires. I think it's like 20 gauge or 22 gauge. I don't know. It's basic automotive wiring. You'll need 3 wires for that to run from your steering wheel down to the 383 connector, and you'll just follow the main harness from your steering wheel. And you'll need 1 wire for power. I'll get into the power when I get into the 383 connector, but this is what you'll need. You need those 4 wires. And basically, when you go to get this connector and the pins, you're going to just pop that connector out, and you're going to take as much wire as you can. And so when you cut it, you have like a tail coming out of that connector, so you have something to solder to, right? You don't want to just cut right at the pins, because that's going to be messy. So you're going to want like 4 or 5 inches of wire that then you can strip down and then solder these wires too. Okay, so that's what you need on this end. So let's take a look at the clock spring. Okay, so here's your steering wheel, and this is your clock spring. It's right behind. I was kind of showing you this is what you're looking at when you took your airbag off, right? And this is what you're looking at when you're looking at your clock spring. This is the S61 connector. So your steering wheel, your new steering wheel, will clip into this, right? And so we have here is your power for your cruise control. These two are your main and your cruise control. Like I think this is, I can't remember. Let me take a look. Mode. It's one of these is mode and one of these is main, and then this is ground. Okay, and these are your illumination, somewhere over here, and then I think your audio controls are here. So this is what you're looking at, right? So this shows, yeah. So 10 is mode. So that's set, resume, and or set and cancel or something like that. Cancel is here. These are your three modes, and they're different voltages. So there's your main. So 11 is main, on and off, and 10 is mode. Let's jump down here so we get a better look at it. When I first looked at this and I saw, okay, I looked at it and I didn't have the power going, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. Of course it's not working because there's no power going, so it can't send the voltages. So, this pin 6 says it goes to an accessory power, I think ignition position 1. But as far as I know, this gives you an idea, right, what's happening. So this is your S61, and then there's your S171, which is your contact coil, and then your G346, which goes into your contact coil. So we'll take a look farther here. Okay, so this is your G346. So when you're looking down into the connector, this is what you're going to see. Okay, so you're looking into the wires. You're not looking with the wires into them. And then that's the S71. Obviously it's opposite, right? So they connect to each other. So this is you looking at the ignition. Okay, and we'll jump down here. So this is your contact coil. That's what you're looking at. Okay, there's your airbag power connectors, and then right here, okay, right here, that's your S171 connector, and then the G346 clips into that, and that's what gives you all your wires to go here. Okay, keep going down, showing your pin outs. Okay, again, your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and here's your other pin outs, right? This being 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and these are your 4 cruise control ones that you need. Okay, and just for kicks, I threw this in, but this is for a later date. Okay, this is the connector I pulled from a dump car. All right, and these are the wires. I pulled them out. So you get that connector, and on either side, there's this little retaining clip. You can see it's white here. It's a little retaining clip. You pop it up on one side. You need a really small flathead. You push it in, it pops up. It doesn't pop up very far, but it'll pop up a couple millimeters. Okay, and once you've popped it up, you pull the cables out. It's not going to slide out easy. Like you can see from pushing and pulling these cables, they've gotten a little bent, but it will pull out. And you just have to give it a little. You're going to have to pull pretty hard. You're going to feel like you're going to break it, but you won't break it. These are crimped pretty good. So you pull that cable out, and then you have your connectors, right? And then when you want to go put it in, it will click. There's a little, you can see this little fin here, and basically you can see how it's slanted up, so it'll go into the connector, and then it just clicks in. So it's slanted on this side, I believe, and then it locks down, and that's how it locks in. So when you're pulling it out, you're kind of squishing that connector, but it's all good. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what you need to get your contact coil. You need these pins from a dump car, and you need to put them into your G346 connector, right, which clicks into here, and you need to run them down to your 383 harness. Okay, so we're just starting on this side. I'm going to show a little clip of what I had to do to deal with that. And if you can get something that'll fit in here into this connector, you need the 4 wires. You need those 4 wires. Okay, so I'll go back up here just to clarify, right? So you need 4 pins. You need 1 pin for power, which goes into 6. you need ground, okay, and you need a pin for your mode, your cruise control mode, and your cruise control main, on and off, okay?
So I pulled this from a dump car. This is the connector that goes in the clock spring. All right, and these are the pins. So you can see that if you have that roster kit with you, you notice right away that these pins are a lot shorter. They are not as long as the roster kit ECM ones. The roster kit ECM, this part right here is longer. So what happens is, like when I put this into the connector, you could see if I hold it right here, you could see that this tab right here, right? It will come down right behind and it'll clip it in. But the roster one's so long, you got still a bit of a bump here that hangs out because it's a lot longer at the front there. So this tab can't go down with those roster pins in. Terminals in, sorry. So, I mean, you could try modifying them, or you go to the dump and you pull one of these.
Okay, the E383 connector and the MTR 1G1 power. This is the next step. So you got your 4 pins into that G346 connector that goes into your contact coil or your clock spring, right? Pin 6 being your power, pin 12 being your ground, pin 10 being your mode, and pin 11 being your main, right? So you have those all connected. You have 4 wires, or at least you have the pins ready. Maybe you don't have them in that connector pumped in and not whatnot, but you're ready. So what do you need for this side of it? This is the other side. This is the ECU side. This is getting to the ECU. All right, well, we need 3.110 female spade connectors, 18 to 22 gauge, which is also the red color, okay? Now, when I use these connectors, you buy them, they come with this vinyl kind of ring, but I removed that. I crimped them, and then I soldered them, and then I put shrink tubing on them. Okay, you will also need 1 T-tap. Okay, this is a very nice and handy 3M device that allows you to just clip it onto a power line and connect to it. And then you will need the 250 male spade connector, and that will connect to your power coming out of your pin 6, and it will connect to this T-tap. These 3 will be your ground, your main, and your cruise control mode. And you'll also need shrink tubing. Like I said, I soldered. Okay, I soldered all of these and I shrink tubed them. That's what I prefer to do. Okay, so let's take a closer look. We got some examples here. This is Amazon.com. These are an example of a .110. Okay, here's what it looks like. Amazon.com. This is Canada. Amazon.com. Those are what they look like. They're a lot thinner. Now, see, I went to Home Depot, picked some up, brought them home. Ooh, it was .250. Didn't fit, too big. Had to get these. Couldn't find them anywhere locally. I live in a small town, so I had to order them online. Here's your T-tap. Okay, red, 22, 18 gauge. This clips over, and it becomes a nice connector. Your spade goes right in here. So it's simple, no soldering. A lot of people don't like them, but you know, it works. Okay, that's .com, and look at how much Canada's is. Wow, it's like 4 times the amount. Here's your 250. Now you could pick this up anywhere. 250 spade connector. It's a very popular one. You know, you could also find that maybe at a Radio Shack or Source if you looked. So that's what connects onto your power cable, your pin 6, right? And these are for your pin 10, 11, 12, your ground, main, and mode. Okay, so let's take a closer look at that again. So there's your power. Okay, so this is coming out of that 346 connector. It doesn't seem like it, but there it is, 346. It's all the same. Just try to pretend 6, pin 6. And that's going to go out. It's going to go into a male spade connector, And over here, just before the fuse, you're going to have that T-tap on, and this is going to plug into it. Okay, so there's the male spade, there's a T-tap, just imagine in this wiring diagram. Over here, right, here's the E383 connector, 383, right? So right here you're going to have those 110 females, and they're just going to slide into this green connector. Okay, so notice that this one's going to be in the middle, and so what I did on this middle one, and you'll see it in the picture and maybe the video, is I put shrink tubing, around the actual spade connector. They were so close together that by having that shrink tubing, then there's no contact between this one and this one, or this one and this one. So this has that shrink tubing. It's insulating it from any kind of circuit or a voltage that could jump across to these two connectors. And you'll see what I mean in a second, right? So take a closer look. See, they're really close together, right? Those pins, and just a little bit of motion, and this one might touch this one. So shrink tubing this one would be a good idea. Again, so this is pin 6, 7, and 8. That's right. 6 being your main cruise control, 7 being your mode, okay, so resume, set, cancel, and 8 being ground, right? And those respectively go to 11, 10, 12. They actually switch. But all right, so that is a good look at it. And here, hopefully this works. Play you a video. I'm coming down, and there's the connector. You can see my clutch going into it. So you can see that at this point I haven't soldered yet, but what happened was I kept pulling these in and out because I was modifying my harness, and the crimp actually came apart. I mean, I have a decent crimper, but it obviously wasn't doing the job because these are. And let's go to the power, right? So MTR, and then you saw in this wiring diagram, 22. Okay, here's our power block, and I really don't totally understand, but you see 22s here. I know from these two are accessory ones, and I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this was the blue and yellow wire that Rostra. If you look at Rostra's instructions, they're like, hey, you just clipped this blue and yellow wire. And if you know me, you're kind of like, what? I don't know where the heck that is. And you see there's a red and black one here, and like you're thinking maybe that's the MTR one, because in the wiring diagram it's red and black. Right, and they color code these for a reason. So red and black, right, and the Rostra showing you, connecting to this blue one in their instructions. Now I don't want to do the blue one. I wanted to be on ignition 1. Accessory is radio and stuff, and I just felt like what happens is you're turning the cruise on, and then when you go to ignition 1, you actually turn everything off again, and then you turn it back on. So I wanted to be on ignition 1. So red and black. So let's take a look at this video I have here, and I'm kind of talking about it, right? Here we go. And I got to swing over. So there. So I'm thinking, if I pause it, right? 24, 23, 22. So thinking it's this one right here. You're gonna have to get in there and you're gonna have to pull it, right? But that's kind of an example of what the T-tap looks like. This is not easy to do. You gotta get in there, and you don't have room to move around. Like, you're squished. So putting that T-tap on, it's easier than trying to solder anything on, but it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be a pain in the butt. You'll need needle nose pliers to get in there. Okay, so pretty sure that's where it is. I think it's that one. If we look at this block again, I believe these two are the ignition ones, and this is this 22 one right here is the MTR. Okay, so the reason why you're watching this is because you have a manual transmission, which means you have the E383, and you also have the clutch switch run. You have that, it's just hanging there. It's there. You'll see it. It's a little 2-pin connector up there by the clutch. So we're going to talk about the clutch pedal position switch. And this is all I have to say. Buy the Suzuki clutch pedal position switch. The reason being is because it's reversed, right? I had the roster one, and it is the opposite of the Suzuki. I'm looking at the manual right here, and the Suzuki says when the clutch is depressed, okay, when the clutch is depressed, the clutch pedal position switch closes. So that means when you push the clutch in, okay, and if you've seen the switch, that means the switch is releasing, so it's actually sticking out farther. The clutch circuit closes, which provides a ground to the ECM on its pin, and that actually grounds out and cancels your cruise control. So what happens is when you put the roster one in, if you do a hack, which is what I ended up doing because I had no idea what I was doing. I had the Rostra and I was doing what Rostra told me to do. They said jump it in on the brake switch position sensor, and I found that when I did that, and if I just rested my foot on the clutch a little, it was telling my ECM that I was putting my foot on the brake, right? Because you're jumping it in, so that's obviously what it's doing. And I lost all power to my car, and I could reproduce it every time. So I said, no way, I'm not doing this. Roster is crazy. There's no way I'm going to do this. If I had gone back in time, I would have bought the Suzuki part. Sure, it's $50, but it's got the connector, and you put it in, and you just clip. It's done. Boom. You're laughing, right? Whereas me, I had to take the roster thing apart. I had to go to the dump and pull a connector out of the back light of a Rex SX4, and then I had to take the clutch pedal position switch apart and actually somehow with washers and a lot of MacGyvering reverse the function of the switch. Okay, so where is it? Here we go. It's this SuzukiCarParts.com. There's your product number, right? There's your price. Just add it to your cart, ship it. I believe you're not going to find very many manuals around, but it's the same one on all the SX4s. So here's the thing. This is what I say to people. If you found a wrecked manual transmission car, you're laughing because you get the clutch pedal position switch, and if it has cruise control, you pop out the cruise control steering wheel, you pop out the G346, 346 connector, and you just bring it all to your car, and you're laughing. Now, if you do it my way and you're on eBay buying the steering wheel, you're trying to find a Vitera or an SX4 or probably even a Gazashi will work. You're trying to find one of those and getting that contact, spring contact coil connector, the G346 with the pins, right? And then you're buying your own. Okay, so it really ends up, how you approach this, but this is a must for the manual transmission. Don't mess around, get the Suzuki part, because it's just way easier. The connector's there, right, going to the ECU, so all you have to do is install this, and you're set, right? So here's a video. I know these kind of are laggy, but right, I'm showing you the ECM, the E383. Here is your clutch, right? So this would be your brake. This is your clutch pedal, okay? And the bracket's there, right? So you can see the bracket. This nut is welded in, okay? And this is the nut that you get. I'm talking about it in this video. This is a pain in the butt to put in. All this metal here is sharp. It's sharp, and you're cutting your hand up there, and you got to turn around. When you buy the Suzuki one, I believe it looks like this. Take a look. There's no cables. Yeah, see? When you buy the Suzuki one, it's just, there's the connector on the end. So putting this in will be a breeze. Mine had cables coming out of it. And so, it's whipping around in here. The cables there's no room, and so they're whipping around. And the roster one actually broke a couple times. I broke one of the solder connections because, I tried to screw it in, and the cable would get caught, and it just kept bending. So yeah, the Suzuki one, installation. Forget about the fact that it's the actual right clutch switch. So when this is released, it's closed, and when it's pushed in, it's open. Whereas the roster one is the opposite. So guess what happened when I first put the roster one in? That's right. when I push the clutch in, I could set the cruise control, and when I release the clutch, it canceled it. So yeah, that doesn't work out very well. So to get the Suzuki one, that's all I have to say about the clutch position, pedal position switch, because once you get the Suzuki one in, you screw it into the bracket. You buy a nut from Home Depot, just bring it with you to Home Depot, get the right size, and there is the connector, and it just pops in there, and you're laughing.